Good morning. As usual, this is Monday, June 28th, and I'm Sveta Melchuk, and I am the owner and the chief bottle washer and everything else in this group. So actually, for those of you who don't know me, I was like starting by introducing myself because every week we get new people in the group. And so maybe it's like your first time watching me and you're a little curious, what is this group? Who is this person? What's happening here? So my name is Sveta Melchuk. I am in Montreal, Canada, and I have been a home stager, property styler, designer, house flipper, Airbnb decorator, and everything connected to real estate for 15 years now. So I actually completely changed careers in 2005, 2006. I went from a corporate IT sales and marketing background to being an entrepreneur. Good morning, Debbie. And as you guys are coming on, do like Debbie and say hello to me in the chat so I know who is watching, and hopefully I'll be able to see your name. If you give the StreamYard permission to use your Facebook profile, which you can do right at the top of the video. You only have to do this once. And after that, I will always be able to see your name because unfortunately when I stream with this amazing software, which is StreamYard, it does not allow me to see the names until after the session when I go back to the native Facebook feature. Anyway, so what I was saying is that I completely changed careers in 2005, 2006, which started very, very slowly. At that time in Quebec, Canada, nobody even heard of home staging. This is where I decided to try my hand at. I didn't think I knew what I was doing. I did not know what I was doing, actually. And I've never really been or considered myself a good at decorating or, it was a very new concept, at least here locally. And so I kind of muddled my way through it. I did a lot of research as much as I could on the internet and watching HDTV and buying some decorating books. And then I realized that things that I thought were difficult, most other people found them difficult as well. And I realized that you can do things in a house, and I always was very, very budget conscious for myself and for my clients, and I always tried to find ways of making things look better but while staying on budget. And having conversations with my clients over the last 15 years, obviously I learned a lot. I improved my services, I changed things around. In the last 2-3 years I've taken my business online, and this is my business. This Facebook group is my business. So I get clients from this group, and hopefully you'll consider me for your next staging or home styling project, because I do both. And I've been thinking lately about how to explain, mostly what I do, because I always say that I am a home stager and property styler, but we're going to be talking specifically about selling your home and how to plan your sale today, because I think it's a super important topic. And I think a lot of people forget how to prepare properly. And if you take your time and you do it, then you can maybe avoid a lot of the overwhelm, and also have time to get used to the idea. But we'll talk about it in a minute. But I just wanted to say that lately I've been reflecting on how should I present myself and explain, because I am not just a typical home stager. So I don't just go into somebody's home and spend an hour there and just point out a few things and bye-bye, I leave. I think I go a lot deeper than that, and that's why my clients get the amazing results and amazing transformations that they get, and that's why they get a lot more money. And I know everybody comes back with the same objection in the last year, and they all say, yeah, but maybe we don't really need to hire a stager, or we don't really need to do anything because the market is so crazy, and we can still sell our house and get a lot of money, which is all true. So, but I just want to put a little note to that. So first of all, not all of the areas are equal. So some markets are crazy. Some are still having a little bit more of a slow market, which is normal depending on where you're located. Second, even if you are in Toronto, Vancouver, or Montreal, or any other areas, or in the US, and all these areas where things sell within a day or two, that's great. But I firmly and absolutely believe that you still need to put the effort in to update and prepare and stage your house properly. And if you do so, then not only will you get the top price, but you can arrange to drive that price up by having hopefully competitive offers. All you really need is at least 2 competitive offers, right? And then they start bidding against each other, and then that drives the price up. And I was having a messenger conversation actually with a lovely lady yesterday, and I discovered she's in Canada, but she's in British Columbia, which is 3 hours. So I think maybe Shirley will be watching us on the replay, but I really wanted her to watch today's show because she's a little bit overwhelmed. She's in the middle of preparing her house for sale, and she has questions like a lot of other people is, okay, well, I keep, decluttering and I keep removing things, but I don't know if I'm doing the right thing, and what should I keep? What should I not keep? What should I update? What I should not be updating? Like, how am I investing my money? Am I investing my money in the most efficient and effective way to generate me the top dollar that I could? So I did tell her that I'm not a realtor. I don't give pricing advice, but I just have a lot of experience in real estate. I buy and sell properties myself. I invest in properties. I do Airbnbs. And I also spend a lot of time around realtors. So I am a curious person. So I ask a lot of questions. So I'm starting to get pretty good understanding of what real estate market is and how it works. And so at this time, what my advice to you is even if you are in hot market, if you are willing to put a little bit of money and a little bit of effort into making the presentation the best it can be, it will come back to you still, 10 times over for sure. Or I should say 10, but it could be 20, it could be 30, it could be 40. But I see it every day. And Cindy, good morning, sunshine. Thank you, Cindy. So, okay, so without further ado, I wanted to talk about the preparation because talking to Shirley yesterday, kind of reinforced. I already decided on that topic, but then coincidentally, me and Shirley were messaging, and I realized how important that topic really is, and that I should be repeating it every couple of months, because sometimes people need to hear it more than once, and sometimes they need to hear it at the time when they're actually ready to receive that information and to do something about it. So if you notice during the weekend, I run a little poll asking people how much time they're giving themselves to prepare for the sale of their house. Like once they usually, unless something unfortunate happens and you need to sell quickly, or maybe you have a relative who passes away and then you have to deal with his or her house, it's a little bit of a different situation, because there you might be kind of in a rush. Okay, it might not be so easily to control. But when you're thinking about selling your own house, most times I notice that people start thinking about it slowly. They start kind of getting used to the idea. And I know, because I've been there, it's quite an emotional process. So we'll talk about that just in a minute. But most people actually decide and then gives themselves 3 to 6 months before they put the house up on the market, which did not surprise me at all. And if you go and scan the posts, you're going to see that that's exactly the kind of response that I got in the poll. So we had vast majority of people who selected that they're giving themselves 3 to 6 months time frame before the house is going to be listed. And then we had a few people on each end. So we had a few people who said that they're going to sell within, that they've only given themselves a month or less, which I find very strange. So I think maybe they misunderstood the question. Maybe they wanted to say like how fast they're going to be listing the house, but maybe they started preparing or thinking about it a while back. So I'm not sure whether they actually answered my question, because deciding to sell and actually listing it within 1 month is very, very fast. So I'm not saying it doesn't happen. It does. There are different circumstances that could drive it. Maybe you found all of a sudden, you went to see an open house and you fell in love with the house on the weekend, and then you want to get this house, so you bid on it and you won it, and now you have to sell your house very quickly. So yeah, situations like that can happen for sure, but they're more exceptional situations than the norm. And then there are also a few people on the other side which give themselves a lot of time, and they're thinking about selling their house, but it's 6 months plus, which is perfectly fine. I have a lot of clients like that. I think the longer you give yourself, the better it is emotionally, financially, and you can also kind of space the work out, and then it makes it easier on everyone, including yourself, of course, and your family, to actually get the whole project going underway. So if you are thinking about selling, I don't know, before the end of this year, or maybe even next year, or the spring of next year, right? It's all good. It's all good that you start preparing and doing certain things now. But the majority is really I would say 3 to 6 months range, which is exactly the enough time to go through the whole process, I think, for the majority of the people. So a few months ago, I was talking to a friend of mine who is a realtor in the US, and one of the topics that we started talking about is what she called emotional readiness. And that is something that I'm sure you're familiar with, and I definitely experienced about 3.5 years ago now, when we were selling our house, in which I brought up my daughters, and I got divorced in that house, and then I was alone in that house with my 2 daughters, and I would say that that house became a home for me and my daughters, and that's a home where I was happy. And then when my second husband, when I met him, he came in as a contractor actually to help me renovate the kitchen, and then he eventually moved in and became more than a contractor. But when we started thinking about selling it, it was a very, very big emotional decision. And of course, my kids objected. So that is something that you need to expect, especially if you're selling your home of 20 or 30 years and that your kids grew up in that house. It's quite possible that you're going to encounter resistance from your family members to this, huge life altering change, because it's one of the biggest life changes that you're going to experience, especially for people who are more sedentary. Some people, they are used to changing locations every 2 or 3 years. Maybe they're younger, they do it for their work. But most people stay in the house for 10, 15, 20 years. So the first thing that I would say, once you kind of think about wanting to sell your house, is how ready are you? How emotionally ready are you? And to help you with that, this is something that I did. And I know Diane, one of my friends in this group and my clients, she told me that I helped her a lot to deal with what she had to deal with when I talked about this particular little thing that I call my why list. And what it is, it's very simple. Because you know that selling your house is probably quite emotional and difficult on you, and you're always hesitating, should I not? Am I sure of this? Am I going to regret it? The good thing, good morning, Elizabeth. The good thing is to make your why list. And what a why list is basically, why are you selling the house? What are you going to gain emotionally, financially, physically from selling that house? And I'm also talking to, sorry, I got a hair here somewhere. Actually, Virginia, she's also a client and she's in this group. And I was also chatting with her over the weekend. And she was saying that in her case, it is a big emotional decision. She cannot really seem to find something that she really likes, but she understands that it's very important for them. And she tries to be very positive about it because she wants to reduce the financial stress on her family. She wants to be mortgage free at this point in her life, which is exactly one of the reasons, which was my biggest why. And probably for a lot of your other people, I wanted to downsize because I was fed up of always thinking about the money and always struggling, and how, taxes and all these big expenses with the house. So I found a different way of arranging our family situation. So a why list is, just list out all your pros and all your cons, but mostly the positive things of, are you moving closer to your kids and your grandkids? Are you downsizing because you have financial pressures? Are you planning to travel more, so you need some money, like whatever? Or are you moving to a bigger house, because this is at this stage of your life, this is what you can afford, and now you want a bigger backyard for your kids. So whatever your reasons are, start by listing them. So, and whenever you're feeling sad or emotional or unsure of what you're doing, I suggest that put this list somewhere close where you can look at it and remind yourself of why you're going to sell your house. Now, the other topic that I wanted to discuss with you is your timeline, and we kind of touched on it just a little bit before, but I like to work backwards. So once you kind of decided, do not procrastinate, because, in your mind, when you're not setting up a specific date on listing your house, you're going to always push it back, right? Push it back. I don't want to be pressured. I don't want to do this. So there's some circumstances in your life that might put you in a position where you don't have a choice, where you have to put a listing date. But, in any case, whatever it is, I always recommend you do that. So in your mind, say, okay, I'm going to list by, let's say, October 1st. Okay. I want to sell my house before Christmas because I'm going to spend, I don't know, the winter in Florida or something like that. So once you choose your date, you'll have to, why is this particular date? And one thing I want you to remember is that every month that you're staying extra in that house, once you decided to sell, it's extra expenses, extra investment that you're adding to that house. So, you pay your mortgage, you pay your insurance, you pay heating, you pay all these maintenance fees on a house that you don't really want anymore. So that's another consideration that you should have in your mind, and maybe not stretch it out too much. So say, okay, I know I'm going to be selling this house. I need 3 months to prepare, or I need 4 months to prepare. This is what makes me feel comfortable, but this is the date that I am going to list. And once you choose that date, really, really try hard to stick to that date. Now, and then you work backwards, right, from the date. So this is how I approach work with my clients. I ask them, when do you want to list? And then let's create a backtrack of the project or the things that you need to get done before you list the house. And thank you. Oh my God, I'm getting compliments on the color of my shirt. Yeah, it's a yellow mustard color, which I never ever thought that I could wear. And I bought this little shirt a couple of years ago at Old Navy, actually, and it's the only shirt of that color that I have. But every time I wear it, people like it. So yeah, thank you. Okay, so let's talk about money now. Let's talk about the financial readiness, because I think a lot of people, I'm talking to Jenny, the realtor, we discussed the fact that most people don't necessarily considering all of the factors that you need to know, that I'd like you to know before you put your house on the market. So one of them, and let me know in the chat, like, how do you, at this point, do you really know who knows what your mortgage balance is? Like, put it in the chat, let me know, like, how close do you check your mortgage balance? And if you don't, then I would suggest that is the first thing that you really, really need to do in terms of your preparation for the sale, is you need to know your numbers. Because it's easy. Most people say, oh, I'm going to sell my house for $500,000. This is how much money I want. But you need to know whether it's realistic and what is the real amount of money that you're going to actually pull out of that deal. How much money you're going to walk out with. So I see Debbie knows her balance. So that's perfect. So pull out those papers, look at your mortgage balance, see how much you actually owe. Look at the penalties, because that's another thing that most people forget. If you get out of your mortgage early, most mortgages have penalties, and those are real costs. It's real money that is going to come out of your final number. So you have to look at that, all of that. Talk to your bank or talk to your, whoever, wherever you have your mortgage. And then how much money do you actually need to walk away with after the deal is done? Like, there is a money, you can, and there are ways to analyze it, and we'll talk about it in a minute, but there are ways, there's market analysis that can be done, which will give you a clearer picture of what is really realistic. But you still have to do some research yourself. Maybe you can sit down with a realtor, and you can have more than one. You can have a couple of realtors come to your house and they run the numbers and help you determine, and you get 2 or 3 separate different people. And it's quite an interesting exercise, actually, which I think you should be doing, is to see what the actual numbers are going to be. Like, what is the final number that I'm going to have? So if I sell it at $480,000, what is the final number after I pay all my commissions, after I pay all the closing costs? So don't forget that every transaction also implies closing costs, and a lot of people forget about that. You have to pay your realtor commission. You have to pay sometimes notary or a lawyer. In the States is escrow, and it's a completely different system, which I'm less familiar with. But I know there's always closing costs that are sometimes covered by both seller and a buyer. So you have to become financially savvy, and you have to understand all these numbers before you just run off and say, oh, okay, we're going to list it at this price. Okay, so I just want to really remind you of taking care of all that stuff. Now let's talk about where we're going to start. So the first thing, and it's really the basis of everything else you're going to do, and that's why I'm such a strong believer in it, it's to do the assessment of your own house, of your own situation. Because if you don't assess what your house is today, how it looks, what it's lacking compared to the competition, how you should bring up its resale value, so you could get that $20, $30, $50, $100,000 more for it, right? But if you don't start at the basis of looking at where am I at today and what do I need to do, then how do you know? How can you know that you are going to get the top dollar possible? And a lot of people kind of don't really do this exercise. Now, the exercise can be very revealing, and it's not an easy exercise to do yourself because we're all emotionally attached to our homes, and it's very, very difficult, almost impossible, even for me, okay? It's almost impossible to be totally objective and critical of your own home, because you just don't see it with the same eyes as potential buyers are going to see it with, right? So that is why I really think that particular step, this is where you should start. And if you can, you definitely should get a professional to come and help you assess. So it can be a stager, it could be someone like me, and all it requires is an online consultation, which is usually an hour and a half. And we look at all the deficiencies, if you will, of your house, and then how to correct them in the most efficient and effective way, so it doesn't cost you too much money. But I think this is a step, actually, what I was going to talk about. It's everything I'm saying today. It's really based on my very simple framework. And I built that framework just because I realized that over the years, pretty much every project I do with my clients, it always some sort of that framework. And those are the steps that people follow to make their project easier and less overwhelming. So the step one, my framework, I call it ABCD, which is A stands for assess, which is the first step that I absolutely highly recommend to everyone to do. I actually have an exercise. I have a home assessment worksheet, and I usually run a challenge. I used to run a challenge for 3 days, which was extremely exhausting. So I kind of took a little break from that, where I help people figure out how to assess their own homes using my worksheet, and then we go through it, and we determine, every person at the end of this challenge ends up understanding exactly where they stand and what they're lacking and what they should be doing if they want to get the most money possible. So by the way, if you're watching this, whether live or on replay, you know, if you're watching live, then just give me #live so I know who is here and how many people we have. And if you're watching it on replay, put a #replay and let me know if it's something that might be of interest to you. I've been kind of thinking of maybe doing this home assessment worksheet, but in a little bit of a different format. Instead of running it over 3 days, which is really exhausting for me, maybe doing it more as a 1 day workshop or a few hour exercise or workshop. So it's something that you might be interested in. Just let me know, put it in the comments, send me DM, do whatever you want. But I am thinking of maybe running one, I don't know, maybe within a month or so, okay? So if there is interest, I'd like to know if there is interest, and I will poll people again in the group. But it is, to me, it's the basis of everything else. It's to assessing your current situation, being very objective, being very critical, and either doing it yourself with the help of my workshop, or hiring me if you want to have more individual attention, more individual eyes on your property. We can do that together. So you start there, okay? That's super important. Then the second step is you need to understand your market. If you don't understand your market and competitive situation you're in, then how can you know what is it? How do you compare your house to other houses? You know, usually you have to look at the neighborhood, you have to look at the other houses that sold in the last few months, what houses are for sale there now, and what features this house have compared to your house. And you know, some of that analysis you can really do yourself today with there are a lot of tools with internet. It's might be much easier. You can go to open houses, you can kind of check the competition out. But if you're not doing it yourself, then it's definitely a service that's provided by realtors. And because they want your business and they want you to list their house with them, they will do it for you for free. So again, you could hire, you can ask a couple of potential realtors that you're interviewing to provide you that service, and it's called market analysis. And then you compare and you see what they're going to come up with. But it's super important, and it's also part of my step 1 of my framework, which is A, and that's assess and analyze. Okay, so we have 2 A's in there, so it should be A, B, C, D probably. Then once you've done that, you really get a good idea. At this point, you have an idea of where you are, where you need to be, and what that gap is in between. So now you can make an action plan. So to make an action plan, I always start with updating your property. And I think there's not enough talk about it. And that's why I'm kind of a little disappointed with the perception of what home staging is. And I think that perception is unfortunately perpetuated by a lot of realtors out there, because they want just to list your house, right? At the end of the day, you have to realize that the money is yours. The only people who care about how much money you're going to make at the end, and if you make $20,000 or $50,000 or $100,000 more in the house, it's really you. The realtor doesn't care that much, because for them the difference is very, very small. If you sell your house for $20,000 or $30,000 more, when you take all the commissions and percentages and stuff, for the realtor, it could only represent maybe $200 or $300 extra. So you should really care. You should really care about this, and it's your money. And so therefore, I really think that the realtors, their objective is almost like a conflict of interest in a lot of cases, because they might just want you to list the house as soon as possible. They might send you a little, a stager for an hour, and she or he will come in and just walk around and tell you a few pointers. You'll rearrange a few little things, maybe buy a plant, maybe put some cushions, and it's done. And unfortunately, I really think it's a disservice, because in most situations, in my experience of 15 years, most houses need a lot more than that. So if you do a little bit more than that, and each house is different, of course, so that's where, that's where I work with clients, but it might be some paint, and might be some updating, maybe putting some backsplash in your kitchen. It could be maybe changing light fixtures, or removing some window coverings. And then, but there is some updating that needs to happen. And I can guarantee you that in 90% of the cases, there is some updating that is required. And if you do it, the value, the resale value of your house is just going to shoot up. It's just inevitable. So again, if you make the choice of not doing it, not to do it, it's your choice. But at least I want you to make an informed choice. And I have rarely seen, I think it maybe happened twice, 2 times that I can remember in my 15-year career, where I had people who conscientiously, they knew that they were going to lose money, but one of them was an old lady, and I remember her particularly because I was like, oh my God, if only you painted this house, you could make $15,000, $20,000 more. And she's like, yeah, I know, but I can't. It's just too much for me, and I'm willing to leave that money on the table. So this is the thing, is that once you have a decision to make, but definitely, as I'm saying, like, I really believe that by updating, but you have to be clever about those updates, right? So you don't just want to run off and start renovating kitchens and bathrooms and all that stuff, because that is not what I'm talking about. It's actually the opposite of what I'm talking about, because chances are that renovating kitchens and bathrooms is probably not your best investment. And where I specialize in, it's really helping you through to understanding what are the best investments, like where you should be putting money, like paint, or maybe changing the garage door, or doing certain smaller cosmetic changes in your house that will upgrade your house and bring it to the best possible way with the budget that you have and the situation that you have. So it's all individual, but I'm very, very firm believer that doing some updates to the house will bring you a lot more money. So you have to think about how much are you able and willing to invest into. So you need a budget, right? How much are you willing and able to invest to prepare your house for sale, to increase your home's value? And then what are the kind of things that you need to do to get the highest return on your investment? That was my conversation with Shirley, so I'm certainly hoping that she will be watching this later on, or I'll talk to her about it individually. And this is usually where the confusion and the overwhelm happens, because people are going, oh my God, like, yeah, I know I need to update my house, but I'm not really sure. Should I be changing the floor? Should I be removing the carpet? Should I be buying new appliances? Should I be changing my window, my window coverings? Should I paint the whole house, or maybe just a couple of rooms? So all of those questions that people have, and this is where they tend to get overwhelmed, or unfortunately, I've seen a lot of cases where they just run off and they listen to their realtor's advice, for example, and then they start doing things that they just start putting money, and it's kind of a wasted money, because it's not the things that are the most important to do. And that I have seen this happening times and times over, which really, like, it hurts me. It physically hurts me when I see people like wasting their time, wasting their money, not doing the right things, okay? So this is a step 2 of my framework, which is budget. And most people don't budget. Now tell me, if you're watching, in the comments, like, do you think budgeting your updating, preparation, home staging project is important? And if so, do you have any idea of what that budget should be? Like, in your mind, if you were to put your house on the market today, how much money would you dedicate to, sorry, there's a street cleaning machine, but how much money would you dedicate to improving the showcasing of your house? Would it be $1,000, $5,000, $10,000? And there is a certain formula that I can help you with, which doesn't have to be very scientific. I actually have a worksheet for that as well. I have a spreadsheet, which it's in Google, like an Excel spreadsheet or Google, and it helps you to determine priorities. It helps you determine your total budget, and you can play around with the numbers until you come up with something that is satisfactory to you. And I sell that worksheet. I don't remember for how much. I think it's $9 or something like that. Anyway, if you're interested in the budgeting tool that I have, then just let me know. And if not, it's also be part maybe of a little bundle that I'm creating right now for all these little tools that I have. Okay. Another thing I want to touch on quickly. So when you start preparing, but you're not there, like you haven't finished, you haven't listed your house, but you still have to start thinking in advance, is about your team. And what I call your team is the important people, valuable people, trustworthy people that you need to have around you so your project goes smoothly, and at the end of the day you walk away happy and with a lot of money. So who will be entrusted with a sale of marketing of your property? And a lot of people just hire realtors that are, oh, this is the cousin of my best friend, or this kid just graduated from a realtor school, so he's giving me better deal on commission. Like I'm flabbergasted that most people don't do their due diligence. They don't do the proper research. They don't interview their realtors the right way. So there's a whole separate topic, which I'm not going to talk about today, but I just want to bring it to your attention that it is something that you should really, really be concerned about, because this person at the end of the day has the responsibility of market and sell your property and be on your side, watch your back to make sure, protect your interests, and negotiate for you so you can get the best deal possible, right? So that is, I think, is a very important person. And then, who is your impartial advisor? Because realtors, as much as some of them are bad, some of them are good, but they're not impartial. They're not. They want your listing. They want their commission. They work on commission. They're salespeople. So who is impartial, objective advisor? That I would, obviously say it's somebody like me. So maybe it's a stager or somebody like me who goes deeper than just as the superficial, just throw a couple of things around, who really has your best interest at heart, and who wants you to succeed and guides you through the whole project. That's why my coaching bundle, for those of you who are familiar with it, it's called Ready to List Coaching Bundle, because depending on how much hand-holding you want, I basically work with you from the beginning till the moment that the house you listed and it sells, and then we celebrate your success together, of course. So there's different services that are adapted and that are flexible to each person depending on your needs. But this is what I wanted to say. So you probably, if you do have all these questions about, where should I invest, how much, what I should do, then you have help. The help is right here. And then who are your other team members? So you can do a pre-listing inspection. Some people do, some people don't, depends on the situation and how you feel. You could also maybe at one point have an independent appraiser for different reasons. You might look for a handyman or a contractor to do some updating and renovating, maybe electrician, depending. So you need some trades. You also you might need hopefully you're going to work with a stager. And you need a photographer, but usually photographers are now these days paid either by the realtor, or if you work directly with a website like for sale by owner website, then they usually provide a photographer for you, because it's a super, super important aspect, of course, as a final aspect. So today, if you notice, I did not really talk about the staging per se, because the staging to me, it's the last step of the framework and it is very important, but doing everything else beforehand, I think a lot of people actually, that's where they go wrong and they forget to do all this important preparation. So just kind of a quick recap and we'll be done. I never thought that I could talk for so long. I always think that I don't have enough stuff to talk about. So the framework, just so you remember, it's A, B, C, D. So what are the other ones? So A is for assess and analyze. B is for budgeting. C is for correcting the situation, meaning in that aspect, this is where I include all the updating and the actual like updating, renovating, and making sure that your house looks, looks good technically with all the technical stuff. This is my C, so you're correcting whatever was lacking after you did your assessment. And then D is really the last step, which is decorate or stage, which I just wanted to make the framework easy to remember: A, B, C, D. So assess and analyze, budget, correct whatever needs to be fixed, right? And then the last step is decorating the staging. And everybody usually thinks of the last step as the whole thing, okay? And that really bugs me. And that's why I wanted to come on today and talk to you about it. And also, if you do it this way, if you follow this simple but very effective framework, you'll also experience a lot less overwhelm because it's clear, okay, on things that you need to do. So if you want to discuss this further, if you want to get my advice, or you have any questions for me, or you want to get on a quick phone call with me to discuss your particular situation, then let me know. So this was my passionate speech about the home preparation and why it's so important. Your comments are always, always welcome. I read every one of them. So I hope you'll enjoy the rest of your day, and let me know who you are, and keep putting things in the comments, because that makes me realize that people are actually watching what I'm saying. So thank you so much for being here with me. For people who are watching it live, if you're watching a replay, then just type #replay so I know you watched it, and I welcome all of your questions and comments, okay? Thank you very much, ladies, and have the nice rest of your day. Bye-bye.